It's now time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and local perspective of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday at 9 a.m. on WMOA AM 1490, FM 101.3, JAWS Country FM 100.9, and ESPN Radio AM 630 and FM 92.9. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Energy Insights on a Saturday morning, and we're pleased to be joined once again by Jim Javins. It's been a while, but Javins Energy Services and Energy Insights is about learning something new. And so, for our listeners, Jim, I would just start with an introduction. You know, a gas marketer for how many years, and I think prior to that, in a producer. So maybe you can just give us a little background.
All right, yes. I started out as a producer about 50, 60 miles from here in Wirt County, West Virginia. And I was a producer for 16 years through two various companies. And then I went to work for Enron in Columbus, Ohio in 1990 and have been a marketer ever since through four different marketing companies and always stayed in Columbus to do it, where most people have to go to Texas. I stayed in Ohio and did well.
That's good. That's really good. So let's talk a little bit. We'll go with maybe the year that was, and then we'll kind of look at an outlook going forward. So maybe talk about coming, the winter of 2020 coming into 2021 and what we saw in the industry and then, why we are where we are today in terms of prices and production.
Okay, the first part of 2020 was pretty well the same as it always been. Residential demand held up last year actually because of the COVID-19 outbreak. People went to work from home, kids stayed home from school, but what that resulted in is the commercial and industrial use went down a little because those people were shut down now. Didn't need any heating demand. They weren't in the office, people were at home. And as a result of that, overall, the demand was off some last year because of that.
Okay, I wondered about how that would affect it, but that makes sense now, I guess. So
yes, and then when we got into looking at the pricing for the year, 2020 closed out about $2.50, and the winter NYMEX strip close, which is November through March on the NYMEX natural gas futures market, it averaged $2.79. So we saw a little bit of an uptick there because as we went into the winter, it was just a normal winter. There was not much demand. It was fairly warm, I think. And we got into the first of the year, January and February, and we got a cold snap. So our prices went up some, which really helped the producers out there get a little more for their product.
Yeah, now here we are with the weather unseasonably warm, so I guess that just kind of, you just roll with it, right?
Right. We're going into the summer, and as you get into April and May, you'll see the air conditioning load pick up. And it looks like this year natural gas will feed about 34% of the air conditioning load as the fuel source for generation. So that's going to help us keep that price up some during the summer. It's not going to fall on the snows, and it didn't last year. And actually, for the last 5 years, that's what's helped us keep the summer price up, with the air conditioning load kept building and building over time.
Energy Insights is the program. Jim Javins is our guest, to Javins Energy Services, and you kind of touched on this, Jim, but I think my questioning, is what drives, what are the trends from season to season? So is it purely, obviously the COVID aside, is it purely temperature, or like
in the winter it's temperature? Demand goes up because of cold weather, and in the summertime it stays up, or if it tails off some, it starts picking up as we get hotter because of the air conditioning load and filling storage throughout the year until November, so that we'll have plenty of gas for the following winter. And we came out of the storage this year at a lower level than I anticipated. I was looking around 18 to 1900 BCF, and it come in around 15. So we're going to have to make up that 400 through the summer, which might impact the prices and keep them stable at the very least.
And then a final thought in terms, just for the listener, of a natural gas marketer. Then would you be a third party seller, or how does that work? You're getting the gas for companies or individuals?
Yes, I'm a buyer, and I buy it for the marketing companies that want to resell it to the market, whether it's industrial, commercial, power, residential, and it gives you choice on who you sell to, and it gives you some flexibility on pricing at home and on the industrial and commercial side as well to get a better price, I think, than if it was still stuck with the LDC or the pipeline. Because when they were doing it, it was a fixed rate, and you either took it or left it.
Yeah.
And now you've got choices.
I want to talk again in the future about the pipelines and some of the different things coming out of last year, where we stand, and that'll be another show if that's good with you. But good to see you. You look great. You're obviously out there taking care of yourself, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I had my COVID shots, and I am well.
There you go. Jim Javins, our guest. This is Energy Insights, brought to you each and every Saturday by Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Johnny Wharf, Energy Insights on a Saturday morning, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Jim Javins, our guest, and Javins Energy Services. Mr. Javins is a natural gas marketer, and we have an opportunity. Actually, when we talked last, Jim, I was talking about supply and demand, what drives, what drives the prices in that, and is it the ability to produce? I mean, does that come into play in terms of what's driving the prices?
In a crisis situation, the ability to produce certainly does. But typically, it's just your normal business as usual and trying to get as much out of the ground into the pipes and sold at a price that gives you a return on your investment and then a profit.
Okay, and then you had mentioned that you did all your producing when you were a producer in West Virginia, as opposed to, everybody's going to Texas, right? So let me bring it back around to what happened in Texas. And obviously, they've got snow and cold and floods and all these things all of a sudden, that this aberration for the state of Texas, it really had to affect the gas market, right?
Yes. During mid-February, Texas had some record low temperatures and snow and ice, things that they were not used to having. They just don't have a cold winter. ERCOT, which was the Energy Reliability Council down there, lost control of things because of that. And it was an anomaly. It wasn't normal. They'd had one in 2011 that was similar to this, but not nearly as bad, and were able to pretty well do some rolling blackouts and meet things in a somewhat normal fashion. But this is kind of like a 100-year event. This hasn't happened forever. And they did some improvements on their systems to protect themselves against cold after the 2011 event, but obviously it wasn't enough. They have a 67 gigawatt load in that system. And during that cold spell, their demand was 69. So number one, they were short. So had to do rolling blackouts. Then the cold shut some of the wellheads off. The wind turbines quit moving. They froze off.
Yeah.
And so as a result of gas deliverability, the wells, and they had one nuclear plant that was off, as well as one plant that was off for normal maintenance, which always happens every year about this time. So you lost about 4 to 6 gigawatts right there. And so they were in a part of your demand that you weren't even getting.
Yes. So when a wind turbine fails, well, you need the natural gas, right, to keep it going. So, so do we have to? I mean, as somebody on the outside looking in, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, looking at Texas, do we have concerns to worry about? Do we all of a sudden say we better be ready should anything like that happen here?
I think in the Northeast you'll find that we are ready and have been ready. We've had these types of storms for years and years. The thing about ERCOT is it's a standalone entity. It's just within the state itself, so it had no connection to the grid. So it couldn't reach out to another grid operator and get electric. It had to generate it itself. And when these things occur, you're in trouble. And they had about 24 BCF a day running in Texas in terms of gas, and it went down down to about 12 to 17 BCF a day due to freeze-off, pipeline problems with that in this period of time till they got it straightened out, because there wasn't enough infrastructure on the equipment to withstand that kind of a freezing. They just don't have it down there, and as a result, this happens.
Jim Javins is our guest. Energy Insights is the program, always learning something new and different. And so as far as Texas now, I mean, are they catching up? Or are they back to running at a normal production rate? And did they just really lose a lot of money, in the winter or when it got cold, obviously?
Right. I think they're pretty much getting back to normal now. The thing about Texas, too, is you had marketers that you could choose from to buy your electric. And some of those folks had some different kinds of pricing that they could offer to you, and you pick one of them. But what happens if when this occurs and they have to go out and find power somewhere to get it there or to spend a lot of money, the gas companies, some of them, and maybe electric providers, the bill went up to the residential market. One item I read, the guy looked at his bank account and they had taken out his payment for his utilities as normal, but instead of being a couple $100, it's $1,576, and he was about broke. Another fellow I saw had $3,500 taken
Yeah, I
out.
heard some of that too.
But during that time, gas was being sold at between $600 a decatherm to $1,100 a decatherm, just for like a spot day price, to get something over to this guys from somebody that had it.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Well, thank you for the insight. I was very curious about that, and you explained it very well, so I appreciate it. Jim Javins, our guest. Good to see you again, and wish you the best.
Thank you.
All right, Energy Insights brought to you every Saturday morning by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Energy Insights on a Saturday morning. Jim Javins has been so nice to join us here on the program for a couple, 3 or 4 times, and he is with Javins Energy Solutions, and we have talked about a couple different things. We talked about what happened in Texas and how supply and demand falls, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about LNG. We've talked about liquefied natural gas, but maybe for the listeners, talk a little bit about what that is.
All right. LNG is liquefied natural gas. That's what it stands for. And what it is natural gas that is liquefied or cooled down to a liquid form, put in a vessel, and it's then shipped off across the ocean to somebody that needs it. And when it gets there, it's put in another type of equipment, and it's heated back up and just put right back into the line in the same form that it got to the shore with and liquefied. So it's just taking it, freezing it, getting it cold, heating it back up, put it back in the pipe.
Are these pipelines? I mean, the listener like me or the layperson, as it comes to oil and gas, knows the Keystone Pipeline because we always hear about that. And is that the same kind of pipeline?
No, Keystone was a pipeline coming out of Canada, bringing oil down to Cushing, Oklahoma, and they have some really heavy oil up there, and we have the ability to take that and put it in some sort of product. And our current administration decided he didn't want that anymore.
Right.
And as well as the sale of leases, and that's going to hurt us in terms of continuing to drill places where we would like to drill and have leases to drill with that kind of an attitude toward natural gas, and particularly natural gas.
Yeah, I wondered, so when the new administration takes over, the Biden administration takes over, you kind of already alluded to it that, okay, this gets shut down. But is that the only main pipeline in the country, or is there other ones?
There's hundreds of pipelines across this country, and Keystone was just a new one. We've got pipelines from the west coast to the east coast. There's probably a dozen of them come across this Appalachian basis, 24, 36, 48 inch. We've got the ability to move a lot of gas to market, and that's why I don't think we would have that Texas problem, whether it was electric or gas.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the thing that bothers me in terms of market now is what is the administration going to do to us going forward.
Right.
It's going to inhibit us, at least to some degree, where we can drill, and it seems like they want to go to more of the thermal, the wind turbines, solar panels, and all that, which is nothing wrong with it because they're good and they help.
All right. And then, so as far as this area, and referred to as the Shell Crescent area, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, when Texas had the problems, did it help us in terms of production?
It might have driven the price up a little just because of like a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
But not typically, because if that happened to us, we wouldn't have had the issue. So we're still feeding our markets and doing what we normally do and watching what they're doing. The only thing that might have hurt us is if they could have gotten gas from some pipeline or market that we were drawing gas from, and we had a interruptible clause, they may have interrupted us for a short period to take the gas to Texas. I don't think that happened much because they're just a contained market. They're intrastate, which means they're just within the boundaries of the state of Texas, so they're not governed by the FERC regulations and stuff.
So as it relates to the industry and regulations and a new administration, just like the broadcast business, the more regulations we get that hamper us, then you either get rid of employees or you raise the prices, and there's obvious things that businesses do. I assume the same holds true with the oil and gas industry.
That's true.
Yeah.
As things change, we have to change with it. And if we don't, we won't be in business long. And we have tried to be very proactive in safety, environmentally, and particularly with pipelines and wellheads, because they have had problems in the past, but not near as much as fracking seems to cause people a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
When it's 7,000 foot underground, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to kill your babies, and it's not going to ruin the water.
Okay.
But people are concerned about that. And then you see what happens to Texas, and they think about fracking up here is kind of like the same thing. That's what's going to ruin us,
yeah.
And it's not.
All right. Well, Jim Javins, our guest, we thank you for your time and a couple of weeks here keeping us informed about the oil and gas industry. Great to see you, and again, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Jim Javins, Javins Energy Services, and the program is Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on WMOA Local Radio, JAWS Country, and ESPN Radio, as Johnny Wharf brings you your local and inside perspectives going on in the oil and gas industry right here in the Mid-Ohio Valley.